Wait, is it?
It
It is
is. It is
recording.
recording. It's recording. We got it.
Okay. All right. Welcome to episode 66 of Eat, Drink, Write, and Urban Fantasy Whiteboard. We're going to delve into another trope. You know, we've been talking about different tropes in fantasy writing and just fiction in general, I think. And we're going to talk about the Brainy character today.
Yeah.
So, which is one of my favorites, honestly. But before we get to that, and sorry, y'all, I've kind of gotten her. I asked her, unfortunately, before we started how her day was. So now she's a little irritated because she was reliving her day with me, and it's apparently not been a good one. So how was your week?
Well, the day was actually fine. You got me talking about my undergrads. So I have two undergrads that I teach in the lab that I'm in, and they're very frustrating. So you got me talking about them, and I have a meeting tonight at like 9 p.m. and they're presenting their stuff. And so basically that's what this week has been like making sure that they're good. I've got another presentation that I have to give on Monday. So yeah, grad school's fun. I love it.
Is it at 9 o'clock at night too? That's ridiculous.
No, that's the only thing that I have at 9 o'clock is this lab meeting. And it's because my mentor has decided that 9 o'clock works for her. So it's going to work for everyone.
I would want to be in bed by 9 o'clock. Of course, I'm old. Although she's got children, she ought to be exhausted.
Listen, I get emails from her at like 12 at night. And I guess that's because the kids are asleep and she can actually like do things.
Yeah, I remember those days when you were little. I did do a lot of work at night after you were asleep. And I remember I texted, I guess back then there wasn't text, it was email. I emailed a colleague because I was working, you had gotten up and so I was up and working and I sent him an email and he had a notification set up on his phone. So I woke him up because I was emailing him at like 3 o'clock in the morning because I was working. So yeah, it's a thing.
Well,
and hers are little too. So
they're very little. I think one of them is like 4 and the other is 2 or something like that.
Yeah.
So,
that's
bitties.
little.
Yeah.
My week was, I don't know. It's all chaotic. I'm torn in a lot of different directions. My mother has broken her tailbone, your Nana.
Yep.
So my sister's up there helping them with that. They're going to be doing an MRI because even though the x-rays showed the broken tailbone, it should be healing by now. And her pain is getting worse and worse. So my sister's up there. They're going to do an MRI tomorrow. So that's got me a little anxious.
Yeah. Did they give her good pain medicine?
Yeah. Because she called yesterday and she was slurring her words and your dad was talking to her, and after she hung up I was like, man, she's feeling no pain right now.
She's got the good stuff.
She's got the good stuff, so that's good. And your Aunt Debbie said she's sleeping, so which is the best thing that can happen. She needs to sleep. So what are you eating and drinking?
I have tea because I have the meeting tonight at 9. So I figured caffeine would be better than an alcohol.
I don't know. The way you're feeling, maybe alcohol would be the way to go.
Well, I was just thinking maybe I could do alcohol during the meeting. Like that would be, and it could be the ice water. It's ice water.
Yeah. That's it.
Brian, one of my lab mates, and I used to joke about that all the time. He was like, I'm drinking wine. And he would like lift his cup because he would text me and he's like, it's wine. And then like would lift it. And I was like, oh, good for you, buddy. And then funny. I haven't eaten anything because it's about dinner time and I haven't thought anything for dinner. So I actually I don't know. I feel like a typical college kid this week. I feel like,
going to be ramen noodles.
Maybe I have some in the cabinet. So, yeah.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, I'm drinking a coffee martini. I've been wanting to get that honey Jack Daniel stuff.
Yeah.
And we still didn't, but I found a honey flavored vodka. It's actually a honey pepper vodka.
Oh, that sounds interesting.
And so I've put it in the coffee and then cream, but it still wasn't sweet enough. So I added a little bit of the keto sugar, the monk fruit.
Yeah.
And it's pretty good. And unfortunately, it's already almost gone.
Oh my gosh. Well, I guess we've been talking for a little bit too.
We have. It's good to see you. I haven't seen you all week.
Yeah.
On dinner, I have no idea. I think they're upstairs. Like, this is the second podcast we've done this week because we had to do another one for the end of the month.
Yeah.
And I think on that night we had what they call make it yourself dinner.
Yep.
And I have a feeling it's going to be another make it yourself dinner because I'm not up there cooking. The one thing that I think your dad might have been willing to make required something that I hadn't thawed.
Oh.
So I'm not quite sure what we're doing. And
Well, make it yourself dinner was one of my favorite things when I was a
yeah,
kid.
yeah, yeah, sounds good to me. So maybe
Usually
that's what
meant
we'll do.
cereal for dinner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I like the nights that we had the dessert for dinner. Remember
Oh,
those
those were
nights?
great. Yeah,
Usually it
absolutely.
was when dad would go out of town
Yep.
and
And
we
you'd
would
be like, we're
have
having ice cream.
ice cream sundaes for dinner. Yeah.
Yeah, it was good.
Okay. Anyway, I have jokes.
Yes, hit me with them.
And since we're talking about brainy characters, I couldn't find anything on the intelligent side, but of course I found a whole bunch of dumb blonde jokes. And since
Oh,
I'm blonde, I figured I could get away with telling these jokes.
fair enough.
So, why do blondes tiptoe past the medicine cabinet?
Why?
So they don't wake up the sleeping pills. What did the blonde say after glimpsing a box of Cheerios?
What?
Oh my God, donut seeds.
Oh, that's adorable.
Why did the blonde put her iPad in the blender?
Oh no, why?
She was trying to make apple juice.
Oh no. That's
So,
yep.
those people that can't see us, I am blonde. So, it's okay that I'm telling
It's
blonde
okay.
jokes.
Is it okay that I laughed?
Yeah, she is not blonde. So, yes, it's okay. All right. So the brainy character, I think we've done the mentor and we've done the sidekick. I might have done a couple others, but today is
Yeah.
about the brainy character. So the brainy character offers pure intellectual force to be deployed at will. They're often on hand with equipment or knowledge that the hero needs. What the smart one knows defines what's normal to know and how the smart one and how smart the other characters look in comparison to them. So like in a fantasy novel, it may be normal to have dragons, but it might not be normal to know about the mating habits of dragons. And so
Oh, I see.
by having your smart character know things that your other characters don't, that sets the bar. Having your brainy character explain these things helps the reader know what's normal for characters to know.
That's true. Yeah.
The smart one tends to be a nerd, but this is becoming less and less popular. Or maybe it's the fact that nerds are becoming more and more cool. So
Yeah.
nerd doesn't have that connotation that it used to have. Although I think I told you this in an episode before when the judge made some kind of reference to Ghostbusters. And I was like, oh, you're a nerd like me. He got so offended. So in his generation, it is still not a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
At any rate, so the brainy character is basically the gatekeeper to whatever world the protagonists want to enter. We have to go, like, say, Persephone with hell or whatever it is, the underworld in Latin and Roman mythology. She would be able, if someone up in our world had to go down into the underworld, she would have that kind of information. She would be the brainy character as far as her knowledge about the underworld.
Right, right.
There are different types. It's not just nerds, although they can have the gadgets that will crack the uncrackable lock, but it could also be a person who has the gang contacts to find out when the big shootout's going to happen or when that big drug deal is going to go down. So there's different types of smartness and intelligence.
I love that because I never really thought about it that way. When you pinpoint the brainy character in something, it's always like, oh, well, he is the one with a lot of books, or he's the one who can do the computer stuff, or he's the one who just like knows things. But like I don't know, I guess it's a stereotype, which is why we're talking about it.
Right. And how to switch it up. Don't always make it that book type character.
Right.
They are generally a genius in whatever it is that they know.
Right.
They're an expert that's unparalleled in their field with a theory that just might be right. So they don't always know, but based on the sum of their knowledge, they may have a theory that your main character is going to have to rely on and say, we got to go with it because that's the only thing that might make sense, even though it could be wrong.
Right.
The brain character can be a side character, a sidekick, a villain, or the hero.
Yeah, that makes me wonder, like, do you think that any character type can be a side or a sidekick or a villain or a hero or whatever?
I kind of think so.
I think so too. I just think that that was a really interesting point to bring up because, like, yeah, like I've definitely seen the brainy main characters,
Hmm.
and you always have. I think the most common villain Myers, what is it called? Myers Briggs personality type is like INTJ, and they're always like the evil genius or whatever.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I feel like that's always a thing.
Yeah, I think there's humorous main character, humorous,
Yeah.
humorous, not, geez,
Yes. Yeah.
wow, I
What?
really only had one drink. Uh, I think any character can be anything.
Hmm.
Your hero can be funny as
Yeah.
well as brainy. I think any character can be anything.
Right.
Generally, though, we do see the brainy character as the side character who
Right.
helps the main character achieve a goal. There are different types of intelligence. There's book smart.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I feel like I had a note for that one. I feel like I do think of this one the most. I think I was talking about it a little bit earlier. Like I always think of book smarts when I think of these characters.
Mm-hmm. It is the usual, but there are street smarts,
Yeah.
experience smarts, like someone who is really, really smart in the area of rock climbing.
Right, right,
They know which ropes are going to work and which harnesses are going to work and which aren't going to work for what type of climbing. They are intelligent in that area.
right.
They might not be able to add 2 plus 2, but in that area, they are the brainy character.
Yeah.
You have empathetic smarts, people who are able to read other people. That makes me think of the Mentalist TV show.
Oh, yeah.
He was super smart in how he could read people and know exactly what, it made him come across as almost psychic because he was so intelligent in that form of empathy and visual looking at people. I'm a writer, y'all.
That was profound. I really enjoyed the way that you worded that. It was
Okay,
good.
let's move on. There is hands-on smart, like the ability to do clever things.
Yeah.
Any of these are brainy in their own ways and may have a spot in your novel. The key is to avoid the overdone cliches.
I just love how you've pointed out so many different kinds that like I never really thought about. I mean, it makes sense, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
like the street smarts and the empathetic smarts and like all that. Never really occurred to me that those could count as like quote unquote brainy characters.
Yeah, it's a different way of looking at it and a
Yeah.
different way of adding that kind of cliche trope to your book without being cliched.
Right.
I think. So
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
can you show that your character is the brain? Well, obviously, like you said, number one is books. That's
Right.
an easy way to show they're smart, but it can be very cliche. You
Mhm.
don't have to be smart, carrying around a book all the time is not necessary. I feel like we're fairly smart and we do carry around books all the time, but only because we're reading them, and they're usually urban fantasy books. So
Right. Right.
whatever. But like, I remember reading in some books, like I think it might've been Twilight, where it struck me because she was noticing the books on the bookshelf
Hmm.
and she listed off these books that we all had to read in high school. And she was like, oh, and I've read all those. And I thought that to me, that was overdone. I'm trying to show, I don't remember the main character's name, that
Bella.
Bella, mhm,
Yeah.
that she was smart,
Yeah.
which the author was trying to, which I think, okay, you've got a vampire who could be thousands of years old and you have this young high school girl. How in the world are they amazing going to be compatible? And
Right.
that was one way that the author was able to show that she also was smart, that there was more depth to her than just the little high school girl.
Right. I mean, but I feel like it would have been interesting too if she had shown that through like dialogue, like, oh, you've read these too. Like, I really
Mm-hmm.
enjoyed this one. And that
Mm-hmm.
would have been a better way to, well, I mean, to be fair, I haven't read it since ninth grade. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember how she did it, but I think a good way to go about it would be through dialogue and seeing how Edward would react to her being like, oh, you like these books? And he'd be like, oh, yeah,
Yeah,
I
to
do,
show, yeah. Yeah, I agree. And it just struck me when I read them, and it's been a long time since I've read them as well. I liked those books, and I know a lot of people make fun of them or whatever, but I really enjoyed those stories.
I liked
She
them in ninth grade.
she took a lot of cliched things and turned them on their head and made them her own, and she made a fortune doing it. So
Yeah.
there you go. Um, but yeah, that did strike me. I remember as I was reading them going, it kind of bothered me.
Yeah.
But that being said, noting books in a scene could be a way to show that smartness if you do it the right way, like you were talking about.
Right. Yeah. And then I was thinking, just noting them piled up on a bedside table, or there's like a book on the couch, like just,
Yeah, or
open or
just
whatever.
notice that there wasn't a place to sit because there are so many
How many
books around.
books?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, I think of Sam and Dean and Supernatural.
Yeah.
Um, Not exactly the brainy character, but he was definitely smart. And
Sam.
yes,
Yeah.
Sam. And the writers, I think, in that show use Dean, who is portrayed as not being so bright book wise, to emphasize the books that Sam liked to read. And they kind of played off each other to show, Dean's comments were able to make Sam look. That's how we got across to the reader or the watcher that Sam was smart.
Yeah.
And Dean would say goofy things, but was jam up in a fight and loyal and not dumb for sure.
Right. Right.
Just his priorities were in other places.
Right. I feel like he had a lot of like street smarts, not like the book
Yes.
smarts type of thing, or like experience smarts might be a better
Mhm.
category. I haven't watched all the way through Supernatural. I was wondering if like, does Sam's character stay consistently the brainy character?
Pretty much, but you do see Dean reading books and stuff at the end too when they're trying to find answers to questions or problems that they're facing, but he grumbles about it. Whereas Sam is very intent on reading it. And, I'm looking at this book and Dean's like, oh my God, this book is huge. And he's,
and then sits down to read. Yeah, I was just thinking like, because especially since that series is so long, I think consistency is pretty important. So like when you have a character archetype like the brainy character, obviously characters can change, but I imagine they'll still cling to like that kind of base.
Yeah, Sam grew in other ways. He stayed consistently caring.
Yeah.
All the way through, except for when he was inhabited by various other creatures.
Yeah.
But even inside, when he was inhabited, he still stayed that caring creature. Oh, and when he lost his soul, that was also,
I vaguely remember something about that.
Didn't have the ability to care either, but he remained smart.
Yeah. Yeah.
I actually like Dean better. Dean is my hero.
He's pretty funny. Yeah.
And that his humor, and I've watched him in other movies. His acting abilities are much more. I mean, he did great in Supernatural. He is my favorite character in all of Supernatural.
Yeah.
But his humor could be used so well. I'm waiting for a series to pick him up because he's got the his timing for humor. And me, I am a big humor fan.
Yeah.
I don't like sitcom type of humor, but the timing of his lines that he did that really well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm waiting for the next, Sam is now in Walker, Texas Ranger.
Yeah.
And we're watching that and he's doing great. And I love that show. So, but as to other characters, I think Giles and Buffy, although I think we talked about him as the mentor character.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's definitely a brain, but I think his character, if I had to portray him, is more the mentor than the actual brainy character. I mean, he always has the books in the library and they always use it for research for whatever evil Buffy is fighting. But I think Willow is the brainy character of that show.
I definitely agree with you. I think, I think Giles is more the mentor character, because I think mentors are also brains. Like, I don't think a character has to be limited to one type of character or whatever.
I mean, mentors are usually a mentor because they have knowledge or experience or something to pass on to the main character,
Right.
which makes them a brain in whatever that issue is to begin with. So you're right. I think you're right.
Yeah, but I do think you're also right with the point about Willow, because I think she was set up as the brain character from the beginning. You know, she would help Giles with computer stuff. So like Giles, even though he was the mentor brain character, he was like, "Can you wrestle information from this machine?" And she's like, "Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah."
Yeah.
And
Because how long ago was that? It was before.
90s. Yeah,
Yeah. It was before
yeah,
we have the walking computers on our phone. You know, there was no,
yeah.
I don't know that they ever even got to cell phones in that series. I can't remember.
I don't remember
Might
either.
be
It's been a
time to
while.
rewatch that
Yep,
series. That's such a good series.
yep.
But yeah, Willow, she had the books, but she's computer oriented, which at the time frame that was um, getting set up, computers were just on the verge of coming out, and she immediately jumped on that. The
Yeah,
other way that she is seen as the brainy character is she was worried about her grades, and they were in high
right.
school, and you know she would tutor people, and
Yeah,
so that was a way to show that other characters in the book saw her as smart.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
um, let's see. In young adult books, this is really easy to spot for that reason because a lot of times they are in school and you have them worrying about the test. I'm thinking of Teen Wolf.
Oh
Um,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Although I don't know who the brain character would be.
Styles.
Styles,
It
you know,
was the
we
brain, but
talked,
not because of grades.
he he was, I would say, probably the brain as well, but we talked about him as the sidekick in the sidekick episode.
I again think that you don't have to be just one
I
character
think you're right.
archetype. Yeah.
I love him. I
He's
love
the best. Yeah.
every movie. He's still funny. I just watched his movie, Monsters in Love,
Yeah.
and he is brilliant in that as well. He is such a good actor, and he can
Yeah.
pull off that, and his face, just his expressions. He's like Dean in Supernatural in that their expressions are funny lines all by themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very, very well done. Um, but it would be fun to twist that up too and have the brain be someone smart in other ways instead of the typical, oh, yeah, she's the straight A honor roll student, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like it would be really cool maybe to have the kid that's in shop learning, doing woodworking, be the brain because they need to use the proper type of wood for some kind of key that has to be made. And he's the only one with the skill that can make that, you know,
That can actually do it.
do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a nice way to twist that trope. In the Magician series, which is another one of my favorite series, I like to watch TV, y'all, and read. Anyway, the
Yeah.
Hedge Witches, they didn't have access to the
Yeah.
books at the university. They were banned from having those books. And so they had to be street smart and learn magic in roundabout ways.
Right.
So
Yeah.
those, I think the Hedge Witches are more brainy than the ones that were actually in the university because they had to do it without the books.
I agree. I think that's very brainy. I mean, I think obviously Alice was the brainy stereotype character.
Yeah, she was the one
Um,
in the university with the books and the knowledge. Yeah.
Yeah, but I do really enjoy the idea of the street smarts brainy types.
Mhm.
You know, because I feel like I don't usually think of them as the brainy characters, but they are because
Yeah.
they are learning things and have knowledge that, you know, the magicians in the school didn't necessarily have access to.
Yeah, because it all came easy to them, and the
Right.
Hedge Witches had to work for it.
Right.
So, yeah, in some ways they were way smarter than the kids at the university.
Yeah.
Another way to show that your character is the brainy character is by having them answer questions. So when the characters are scratching their heads as to a situation, having the brain character know the answer or at least point them in the right direction is a great way to show that they're the brain.
Yeah, definitely. Or even have them come in with new information that can spur the plot forward. Although be sure to like make sure it's not out of the blue because you don't want that weird, like, well, how did they know that?
Yeah.
Oh, the only reason that the plot worked out was because they came up with a random thing.
Yeah, definitely don't do that.
Yeah.
Have other characters turned for them for answers too, not just for this one particular question, but anytime anything comes up, have other characters turn to your brain character.
Yeah, I love that. I think your reader will automatically pay attention to the details that your characters in the novel do. So if you have your characters point out, I think you were talking about it earlier, have your characters point out, hey, you're really smart. Then your reader will be like, hey, they're the smart person.
Yeah.
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 The brain characters often mirror to different trope characters, like the smart and dumb, not
Yeah.
necessarily smart and dumb, but they often mirror another character that you might have in your book. So think of Sam and Dean.
Yeah.
Sam
Yeah.
being smart, and Dean wasn't dumb, but he was smart in other ways.
Yeah.
Willow and Cordelia.
Yeah.
Cordelia, bless her little heart. I still remember that one episode where Buffy could read all their minds.
Oh, yeah.
And Buffy was seeing all the convoluted thoughts that were going on. And Cordelia would be like, her dress is green. And she'd say, her dress is green. There was no thought going on anyway, but that was a really good way to show the character roles of both of those characters, as having them play against each other.
Definitely. Yeah.
Mr. Spock and Bones in Star Trek.
Yeah. Yeah.
Both are smart men. Bones is a doctor. So obviously he's book smart. But their interplay is really funny. Like, Spock going at things in a logical way, and Bones wanting to say, that's just not, I don't feel it in my gut type thing, is a great way to develop both of those characters.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's also just fun to see different character types interact with each other in general. I think you can get a lot of like explosions and a lot of very funny, humorous moments.
Yeah, tension and conflict, which we talked about in other episodes, as well as just we learn about each of those characters by the way they interplay with each other.
Yeah, yeah.
You do want to be careful not to have your brainy character have all the answers. I mean, that's boring. If they know everything, the story is going to be too easy. There's no conflict, there's no tension. And what's the fun in that?
Yeah, and I think that's kind of like what I was trying to reference earlier, like make sure it makes sense for them to have the answers that they do.
Mm-hmm.
It might even be fun for them to expect to have the answers to something and then freak out when they don't.
Or have everybody go, yeah, that sounds good, and they do it and it flops.
And it's horrible. Yeah.
I mean, that can be very funny.
Yeah.
Also, depending on how you want your brain character perceived, you have to be aware how they interact with others. You don't want your reader disliking them because they seem to be a know-it-all.
Right. And so like if they are a know-it-all, then like give them other qualities that kind of offset it.
Mm-hmm, definitely. Yeah. I think this is why a lot of brainy characters are funny in some type of way.
Right.
In The Flash, I think I've talked about Cisco before. He is my favorite character in that entire show. He is quite funny, but he's also the brain. Well, they're all smart. They're all smart, but he is the one that problem solves.
Gotcha. Yeah.
But he is so funny. And so he is my favorite character. So you can overcome this know-it-all issue of having them being annoying by having them play that type of jester role.
Yeah.
Or you can have them be clueless about other things. We all know those really, really smart people that just have no common sense whatsoever.
Yeah. It's like you can talk about nuclear fission, but you can't talk about like something super simple or whatever.
I have to tell a story about Courtney.
Oh, okay.
So she is super smart.
Oh, I think I know this story. Sorry, continue.
One of the smartest people that I have ever met. And she truly believed that when the windshield wipers on your car went bad, you had to buy a new car. Yeah. It just didn't dawn on her that this was a piece of the car that could come off and be replaced. I mean, she honestly believed it. And bless her heart, she is super, super smart.
Yep. Oh, she is incredibly smart, but Lord.
Yeah, sometimes she lacks a little bit of that common sense.
A little bit. I also really enjoy like humble brainy characters. So they don't roll over people with their smarts, but they are like very encouraging. And when other people have input, then they listen and they're like, actually, yeah, like that's a good idea. We could probably do this to make it better or something like that. Yeah.
A lot of times the writers make the brainy character have, they're ugly, or they feel like they're ugly, or, they have self-confidence issues. So I would try to not necessarily go that route because it has been overdone. You can, there's a reason why it's been overdone, because I think they might be trying to get them out of that, oh, I know everything type scenario. And if you have someone who doesn't believe in themselves, that's one way to make them relatable.
Right.
Another way to let people know that your character is the brainy one is through vocabulary.
Oh, yeah.
And I really liked finding this one. The using vocabulary is a great way to indicate intellect.
Definitely.
And Justified, which is still on my mind because we just finished that show. Boyd Crowder, the bad guy, these are all country hillbillies from Kentucky. He is incredibly smart, and you see that a lot of times through his vocabulary. And this one marshal or police officer or somebody who was talking to him said, I have to use Google Translate just to talk to you. And that just struck me so funny. And it emphasized how smart he was.
Yeah. Again,
was,
using like your other characters.
Yes, too. That was a great way. I mean, we already knew it because of the way he talked.
Right.
But having other characters within the story also recognized that his vocabulary was above what a normal country bumpkin would normally say. Right. And I can say that because we're from Georgia, so we're country bumpkins too.
A little bit.
So, it was just neat that that was used to emphasize how smart he was.
Yeah.
Especially since you expect him to be done. He's just this redneck criminal. So that was done. That was great.
Yeah.
And my Demon Hunter book, Trick.
Yeah.
She has an odd vocabulary. She is very fun to write. She uses words that I didn't even think I knew.
Yeah.
Which obviously I must know them because I'm the writer writing them, but they come from somewhere. She writes herself and she talks in a way that I would never talk.
Yeah, and absolutely. I love characters like that, honestly.
Yeah. And so through her way of talking, it comes through that you feel her intellect and there's more to her than just the, hunt demons, kill demons, that kind of thing.
Right.
But don't overdo it. With Boyd, his Southern charm kept us from finding him annoying. It would be boring if they talked over our heads all the time, unless that's your goal as the writer.
Yeah.
I mean, I can see the use of a character who is that smart that can't relate and is over everybody's head all the time. And that might be a way to add tension when they really need to be listening to him, but they are so used to him talking garbly goop nonsense above their heads that they don't listen to him when he actually has the key. There is a way to use it. So just
absolutely, yeah.
Be aware of that when you're writing it. You can do whatever you want. Just use it with care.
Right.
Like think about House.
Oh God, yeah.
He's an asshole. I'm sorry, but he is. And we do find him annoying. But the author used other means for us to connect with him to overcome that smartness of his. He really did care about solving the problem. I don't know that he cared about the people that had the problem, but he cared about solving that problem. And it ate away at him until he could get to that answer. And I think all of us can kind of connect with that type of mentality. But, so the writer had to be they did that on purpose. They made him annoying, know-it-all asshole on purpose.
Yeah.
And had to find other ways for us to relate to him. And it was neat.
Definitely. I mean, it made me think of, I think it'd be easy for a character to come off as pretentious or with overboard vocabulary. But it made me think of the other day, I was trying to write something called a 3-minute thesis. And so basically I had to boil down my research into a 3-minute talk. And it had to be understandable by a general audience. And so I was trying to think of another word for ameliorate. And I just couldn't. There was nothing in my brain except for that word. And I had to go to thesaurus.com and be like, what is a better, simpler word? I needed just simple verbiage. And my brain was like, no, it's just ameliorate. It's ameliorate. And I was like, just a smaller word. I just want a smaller word.
I lived through thesaurus.com.
Yeah. Well, everything. usually when I use thesaurus.com, I'm looking for a better descriptor or a better way to say something, like a word that describes exactly what I'm going for. And it's typically a longer word. And this time I was just it's just ameliorate. That's all I've got. That's the only word.
It is what it is. The definition of ameliorate is ameliorate.
Right. That's it. That's all I have. So I did have to go to thesaurus.com to find a simpler word, which I don't think I've ever done before. So that was really interesting.
That is interesting. Huh. Another way to indicate who the brainy character is through communication.
Yeah.
Think of how you want them to communicate. Do you want them to be that person that always explains things in the super complicated terms because they don't have the ability to understand that people aren't on their level?
Right.
Or do you want them to be the type of person who's going to say, well, it's like if you did this, this, and this, to be able to explain it, where they automatically know to put it into simpler terms for the people around them? Both ways show the intellect of the character, just differently.
Yeah, and I think both ways can be done super well. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
love when a brainy character gets like super excited about an explanation and then has to like slow down and be like, "Okay, sorry, let me." So, and then like go into their
Yeah.
explanation.
And usually the way that the author winds that down is in English, in English,
Please.
prof, in
Yeah.
English, please.
Yeah.
It's also a great way to show humor in a book. If you want humor in your book,
Yeah.
miscommunication. When you have a brainy character who assumes things, assumes that everybody gets what he's talking about, and then to have them act on it, not at all in the way they were thinking, it can be really funny. It can
Right.
be an effective way to move the plot forward and to get humor across and to, again, emphasize the smartness of your character and the need to be able to communicate better.
Yeah. Yeah.
That I think could be very effective.
Definitely.
The way your character acts is a way to show that they're the brainy character. How does your brain act in situations? That reveals their intellect. Like MacGyver,
Yeah.
we all know he's super smart, but we still call it, oh, he had to MacGyver his way out of that situation. Everybody
Right.
knows MacGyver can take a toothpick and two rubber bands and,
Figure out
create,
how to
yeah, an airplane or
pick a
something.
locker. Yeah, just do something.
So that is a great way to show the brainy character. This makes me think of my little nephew, Brock.
Yeah.
He is super smart and he's slow to talk, which is interesting because I know he is smart. You can see his gears going. And I think it may be that he's slow to talk because of all that's going on inside. He's a little problem solver.
Yeah.
He had wanted to get into his dad's truck bed. I think he must have been around 2 at the time.
Yeah.
And he tried climbing up the tire, which was taller than he was. And that didn't work. And so he tried the fender and that wasn't working. Well, he discovered the truck, the hitch on the back of the truck, climbed up on it, climbed up on the bumper, climbed over the rail and was into it and was so proud of himself. But he did not stop until he figured out a solution to get where he wanted to be.
Yeah.
And that child is super smart. Now, I don't know, they're worried because he's not talking well yet. Well, I can look at him and tell
He figures things out. Yeah.
there's not going to be a problem with this child. He is super smart. But anyway, back to how they act in a situation also can help them be more well-rounded. So how does a person who excels mentally deal with a physical situation?
Right.
Think on how you want your character to be. You don't want them to be two-dimensional.
Yeah.
That's not okay. Our whole goal is to have every one of our characters in our book be three-dimensional, which is part of my issue with Justified, not getting to know more about those secondary characters. They didn't round out those secondary characters. They were just two-dimensional sheriff buddies,
Yeah, definitely. I think it's absolutely necessary to round out all of the characters, especially, I mean, well, not even just especially, but all of them, just especially all of them.
Especially all of them.
Especially all of them. Yeah, I also feel like the brainy character can show it through acts by actively seeking out further information. So like they go and hunt for it as if they can't help but find more knowledge. Like they want to know more.
I like that point because a lot of people just are like, what do we do? I don't know. And then they don't know what to do. Whereas a brainy type character would go, I don't know. Let's go look it up, or let's go over here. Or I think this person might know something. And like you said, they go, that's a great point.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I've got some examples of brainy characters. There's tons of them.
Absolutely.
But Sherlock Holmes, he's a main character, but brainy.
Yep.
Hermione Granger, of course.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gandalf in Lord of the Rings, which I think we put him in the mentor category as well.
Yeah.
Matilda, remember Matilda?
Absolutely.
Yeah, super smart kid. Mulan.
Yeah.
She's one of those that I don't know that she had book smarts because she was female and wasn't allowed to do those things. But boy, you put her in a situation and she wasn't going to give up.
Problem solve. Yeah.
Definitely. She's like Brock. Brock's like her.
Yeah.
Annabeth Chase. This one I thought of because the Lightning Thief, you know who I'm talking about?
Yeah, yeah, Percy Jackson.
Yeah, Percy Jackson. Yeah. She's dyslexic. And so people think that she is not smart,
Yeah.
but she's only that way because she was raised reading ancient Greek.
Yeah.
And so to have to go to school with humans and learn English, it was hard for her, but not because she's stupid, because she
Yeah.
could read ancient Greek. So and she's super smart. And that was a really neat way to twist that trope, to have other characters think, oh yeah, she's not very smart, she can't read or whatever, but have the real reason come out is because she's super smart.
That's really cool. I've never read those books. I've heard they're absolutely amazing, so I
Mhm.
need to. But
I mean,
yeah,
they're young adult, and that's not your favorite thing, but they are
yeah, but the
very
concept
good.
is
Yeah,
pretty cool. Yeah.
yeah. The professor from Gilligan's Island. I don't know if you ever watched Gilligan's Island.
I like remember the theme song and watching it as a tiny, tiny kid.
Yeah,
But yeah,
he was the stereotypical kind of mentor too, though. But the super smart one on the island.
yeah.
River Tam from Firefly. I don't know if you watch Firefly. I love
Yes, I did.
Firefly.
Yeah.
I am like a fan, like a nerdy fan of Firefly.
Nerdy fan.
And River Tam, I don't know if she was autistic or what, but she was super, super smart, like off the spectrum smart, and didn't see the world the way the rest of us did.
Yeah.
And just brilliant.
Yeah.
Dexter Morgan from Dexter.
Definitely smart.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely smart. I mean, he's a serial killer who
Mm-hmm.
never got caught.
I
So,
mean, how I had never thought of him until I came across him
yeah.
in this list. Sheldon Cooper from The Big Bang Theory.
Yeah. Given. Yep.
Yeah. Data from Star Trek.
Also a given. Yeah.
And they made him, they worked around his knowing everything, which a computer brain could be certainly annoying. And they did make him annoying at times,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
they worked around it by his quest to be human.
Yeah.
You know, he wanted to feel humanity and emotions. And so we could all relate to him and we all loved him.
Yeah.
There is so much more. And I could probably talk about these characters and other things, and maybe we'll come back to it at some point, but that's all I've got for now.
Yeah. No, that's all I've got. I mean, I've got an interview question.
Okay.
Who's your favorite Brainy character that you've written and why?
I was trying to think if I even have any Brainy characters.
Well, when you add in like the empathetic smarts and
That's
like all that kind
true.
of stuff, like,
Well, Leary is one of my fairies.
oh,
She
she's
is
great.
smart
Yes.
in that she knows every rule that there's supposed to be and when you can and cannot break them.
Larry's a lot of fun.
So she is one of my favorite
She's
characters that I've
good.
ever written.
She's very good.
Yeah, I can't think of who else. What about you?
I really like Sarah from Aiden's World.
Mm-hmm.
She is a witch and she is just has always been brilliantly smart from the time she was a toddler. Picked up spells very quickly, just picks up knowledge very quickly.
How did you portray that in your book? How did you portray her as being the brainy one?
She does have a lot of info. So I am rewriting that book right now with so you haven't read it,
Mm-mm,
but
not since the first version, I don't think. And you've rewritten it like twice since then.
yeah. So witches have a different kind of magic from everyone else. They started off with magic. Everyone else kind of got magic.
Okay.
So, but she knows a lot of magical history. So she knows why the world became the way it is, and eventually she'll clue Aiden in on that. But no one knows except the witches.
Okay.
And so she'll clue in Aiden, and Aiden. So she basically gives information about the world.
Okay.
Yeah, even though she's not supposed to, that's taboo. But
yeah, I think with Leary, I had her be seen because she was, in the very beginning, she schools the leprechaun.
Yeah.
When he was trying to get out of whatever he had gotten himself into. And she's like, oh no, leprechaun, you know the rules.
Yeah.
And so from the very beginning, I was able to show that she's the one that knows those things and helps get Beck through some tough times and puts her into them too.
Poor Beck. Yeah. I have another character in Aiden too, though, that could be a brainy character. Her magic is statistics based. So she can kind of tell the probability of certain situations and like what the outcomes might be.
That is so cool.
And so she, there's one point in, I guess, kind of spoiler alert, but like there's one point in the book where like something has happened to Aiden, and so automatically every character turns to Sandy. This character's name, and they're like, "What do we do?" And Sandy's like, "Well, if you do this, then she'll probably die, and if you do this, she still might die, but it's better."
Yeah.
And so they're like, "Okay, I guess we'll do this."
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, so Sandy's really cool, and she could also be a Brainy character because everybody like turns to her and is like, "What do we do? What do we do?" And she's like, "Based on what my magic is saying, this." So
I like that.
Yeah,
that's fun.
Yeah. Oh, and then I have a sentence challenge.
Okay.
It's a piece of dialogue, and it's, "Please tell me you have a brain in that head of yours."
Oh, I like that one.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you all for listening. It's been a fun episode. I really enjoy talking about the character tropes. It's so much fun because I think we use them and we don't even realize. I think it just happens naturally.
Yeah.
But it is a good way to make our novels better when we know
be aware of it.
To be aware of it. Yeah. So, but come check out our website at eatdrinkwritepodcast.com. Our email is there. All our social media is there. We do have a Patreon. If you want to help support us, it is www.patreon.com/EDW.
Yep.
We have 2 patrons and we thank them very much. We really, really appreciate their helping us out. That's Jen and Deanna. We love them. So we will see you next week. I hope your week is better than mine's been.
Yes. Thanks, guys.